That's excellent. I think that really does typify a lot of the challenges with teaching certain population. And as one of the things you did imply that is part of a Western disease as well. Though I'm sure, obviously, of course, and as you know, ego runs rampant around the world, or the world will look a lot different. But it seems to, be fed, abundantly here in the West. And that is a challenge with students. Oftentimes they come and, they have a splintered personality where one half of them knows that they really need some help and need some healing or to be directed towards healing. But then the other half doesn't want to make themselves vulnerable enough to actually accept the medicine. They want to tell you what medicine they need and all sorts of sweets, so that brutal honesty or that Ogun nature or that heart chakra where you're dealing with that, indifferentiated truth, that brutal honesty and truth, that's really the hard pill that many have trouble swallowing. I'm going to ask you if you could expound on or clarify from your perspective, and that word is ego. What exactly is ego?
The easiest way that I teach and the association of the ego is I associate the ego with that of the physical. I'm not one of the teachers that recommend that you dissolve the ego all the way, because your ego is responsible for your body. Brushing your teeth is egotistical. It has to do with your physical. Taking a shower is egotistical. Putting on clothes is egotistical. So I'm not one of the teachers that say, oh, you have to lose your ego. What you have to do is, going back to what I say with the physical mind, which is associated with the ego, is you have to minimize your ego and not put your ego into your spiritual work. Separate the two. The ego, from my perspective, is there to protect your physical being. When you're out of your body, you have no ego. It's not an egotistical, I'm focused on my physical being. But in a general sense, for easy, simplistic terminology, the ego is defined with your physical being.
Okay. So the ego being defined with the physical being, then in your perspective, then we would also associate the feelings and the triggers of the five senses along with the ego as well, correct?
Correct. Precisely. Everything dealing with the five senses is ego-based. Once you get to the sixth sense and above, however far you want to go to, once again, that depends on what system you follow or things of that nature. But for simplistic terms, once again, everything above the sixth sense and above is dealing with your spiritual nature. So yes, that's precisely, I agree, and that's why I teach that the ego deals with the physical, and that's associated with your five physical senses.
Okay, so we've kind of covered to some degree some of the challenges that come with being a student and really outlining what makes a good student. But let's speak about the instructor energy. What makes for a good instructor?
One of the things I pride myself on, and one of the things that I was told spiritually from what I call my spiritual dream team, meaning guides, angels, ancestors, and so forth, is always talk about and teach about what you live. If you don't live it, don't speak it, At one point in my life, I was a hardcore vegan, and I was one of them vegans, not to the point where I was like, oh, you're eating meat, oh, you shouldn't eat meat, I wasn't like that hard, but, I was one of, oh, yeah, I'm vegan, just saying it for no reason, no one asked, you know what I'm talking about, vegans, like, oh, I'm vegan, beloved, no, I don't eat that. How dare you? I wasn't like that, but I was like, I quit to tell somebody, oh, no, I don't eat that, I'm vegan, But I came to a point where, it's more about balance. For my personal disposition and the lifestyle that I live, we don't eat meat all day, every day, like 3 square meat meals a day, but, we may average 5 to 7 meat portions per week, and that works for my family. For someone else, that may not work. But I said all that to say, I won't be on the radio talking about, you need to give up meat. I mean, that's just a total contradiction. From my perspective, and I do feel the energy of other people that I know they're not living what they're speaking. So it's very important for me to live exactly what I speak, because what you do in the dark will come to light. So if I'm going around preaching and teaching one way, then I got to live that all the time. You know, and I don't want to live that kind of life where I'm worried about somebody seeing me doing something that's contradictory to what I said on the radio, wrote in an article, or told a student. You know, that's not the lifestyle for me. If that's you, you know, so be it. You know, but from my perspective, that's not right. So one of the signs of a teacher or a good instructor, I believe, is someone who practices what they preach. Also, another key component, I believe, and something I pride myself on, is teaching people where they are. You know, I'm not going to give the same lessons to my 12-year-old that I may give an advanced metaphysics student. You know, we have to teach people where they are. I'm not going to divulge everything that I know on a radio show because you have to qualify certain people. Everything that you do has to have some kind of prerequisite. That's going back to what I was saying. One door leads to another door. So you have to teach people where they are. And for a radio show to a general audience, you give general information. On a one-on-one consultation with someone that may be experiencing, say, like entity attachment or something of that nature, then you're going to speak to them differently than someone who is fresh out of high school and just want to know about the chakras. You know, you teach people where they are, and that's something I'll pride myself on.
Okay. So even with that said, you know, working with people where they are and in terms of really kind of regulating what it is that you're sharing with folks, what do you do when you have a student who demands to get the full picture?
And that's, once again, that's on a person-to-person perspective. For one thing, there should be a level of respect among student and teacher that they do not demand anything. The best student is one that will take the lessons and guide from a teacher, apply it, and become greater than that teacher, but never show up that teacher. Mm-hmm. They always have a certain level of respect. So if you have a student that's demanding something or got a gun to your head about something, that honestly, that probably shouldn't be a student. That's not an ideal student. And eventually, the tie is going to get broken anyway by just natural evolution, because that's not the proper energy of a student. The whole thing about a student is humility. You can disagree with your teacher, but you never confront them. You disagrray with your peers. You don't disagree with your teacher. You keep that to yourself. That's my perspective. I would never disrespect anyone that, I'm not even talking about my teacher. I would not disrespect any teacher. And I can honestly say I wouldn't even disrespect any student if they were convicted on something and did not want to tell something or say something or divulge a certain piece of information. I would respect their free will. So if you get someone that, or I'm going to speak for myself, if I get someone who's demanding something, then I will kindly tell them that, you know, they probably need to find another teacher or find another way of getting that information. But on the flip side of that, if a person comes with a certain energy with them, and once again, you know your students, you know people, and more importantly, you know energy, you can tell if someone is asking because they really deserve to know, or they really deserve to hear it from you or whatever. So if you're feeling or if I'm feeling something like that, then I would tell the person anything I know. You know, people that are real close to me know that I would share anything. If they ask me a question, I will tell them anything that I know. But even in that regard, if I feel it's a certain thing that they may not need to know, that they need to find out themselves, I may hold back. But it just depends on the individual and depends on the energy of the moment.
I totally agree with you. You're absolutely right. There should be a certain protocol between teacher and student, and that really has been lost with the collapse of community, for one. But it goes back to what we were speaking about earlier in terms of doing digital classes, online classes, as opposed to organic face-to-face. You know, it creates an entirely new protocol when you cannot sit in front of someone. Sometimes you'll even see that in the social networking sites where people will say certain things. You know, I often see this with men, and I never feel comfortable with it, where people will be really disrespectful and like comments or posts towards one another. And as a man, you know that there's a certain protocol that you maintain the moment you meet a man. You know, another one of your peers, if you shake his hand, if you greet him. There's certain things you're not going to say. Even if you're upset, there's certain things you're not going to say or do because you know that there's going to be an effect, there's a consequence. And what you'll find is that in the digital world, you don't have that consequence. So people say and do a lot of things that are very artificial, and it begins to take over how they perceive relationships, how they perceive they can behave with the student, the reverence or the lack thereof of reverence that they should have for someone who's actually putting themselves on the line spiritually in order to guide them. Because every student that you take on, you become a charge. They become your blood charge. So you're accountable for them. You're accountable for that portion of the journey, even if it was just you getting them across the water and you were the captain. You're accountable for getting them across the water. So I think a lot of students or potential or prospective students lose sight of that. So even with that in mind, I'm going to ask, you had spoke earlier about a situation with a person who you had to give certain hints towards a certain outcome, resolution, or thought that you wanted them to conceive of or to arrive at. Is that a technique of a teacher to hint?
Yeah, a great teacher will never spell it out all the way. Let's take the traditional school, the classroom setting. A teacher will give you a lesson. A teacher will review that lesson. A teacher will point to the book for the pages for you to read. A teacher will give you exercises. A teacher will give you examples. But a teacher does not sit down with you at the test and mark A, B, C with you. They prepare you for everything, like going back to like spiritual training. You train before the event. When a boxer is training, he is training. But when he gets in the ring, it's just himself. And once you have a person at a point where they can come up with their own revelations and aha moments, they take more pride of it. It's like you working and getting a vehicle as opposed to your parents just buying you a vehicle. The one that you work for, you always take better care of than the one that you're given. Same thing with information, same thing with experiences. When you feel like that you came up with the revelation on your own, that you came up with your own answer, you're going to revel in that a little bit more than somebody just giving you the answers to the questions, so to speak. So I feel like that's one of the abilities that I do have, and every teacher, every student, every guy have their own different weaknesses and strengths. Like I had to work on certain ones, and I'm sure everybody else had to work on certain ones. But every teacher has their sort of like their icing on the cake, so to speak, or their methodology or ways of doing things that differentiates them from the next individual. So one of mine is I'm very cognizant of not telling everything, but allowing a person to have their own revelations and aha moments, because that's where I came in at. Most of my revelations were when I was by myself, and it later got confirmed from a teacher or by a teacher or a book or a lecture or something like that. But usually my aha moments and revelations came when I was either in the pitch blackness of myself or in different brainwaves, so to speak, just different levels of consciousness. That's where my aha moments came, and then it got validated or verified by a teacher or book or a lecture or something like that. So, like I said, that's one of the things I'll pride myself on. But I want to go back to what you said earlier, because you mentioned something earlier when we were speaking about like the avatar and people online and stuff, and I want to make a quick comment on that. An avatar, the children nowadays, let's put it like this. The children, like, when I was growing up, we had, like, Nintendo, and, we couldn't really create accounts and get online and battle someone in Singapore and from Ohio, you know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
It was a whole lot different. But nowadays, the children can make an avatar, get on Xbox Live and put a screen name and nickname, and you never know who they are. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with Twitter, MySpace, and all the various social networks. They put an avatar. Well, that's akin to a personality. When you first meet someone, you're meeting their personality. Personality, if you look at the etymology, means mask. It means to hide something. That is the way someone is at first. we all get into situations where we get a counterpart, boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're a certain way at first. And then what do we say? Man, when I got to know her, she was a whole lot different than when I first met her. But the problem when you look at online and social media network is people can stay in that personality or mask, aka the avatar, where you never get to know them truly. So I think that's another benefit of dealing with people in the flesh or in the physical form.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things you just said is based on the etymology of the word personality, it alludes to a mask. Is there ever a time that we want to switch up the mask?
Oh, definitely. Like I said before, like when I'm in society, people wouldn't know that I'm into metaphysics, the occult, and high spirituality, the sacred sciences. You wouldn't have a clue. That's the mask I wear. When I go to the grocery store, I'm not going to the grocery store picking up fruits and talking to it in front of everybody like, hey, fruit, hey, kiwi, how you doing today, kiwi? You know what I mean? Like, in certain ways like that. And maybe, like I said, I have the Gemini ascendant, so I'm able to switch up my mask, so to speak, in different environments. Like I pride myself on being able to relate to, my brother on the streets and the so-called ghettos of the neighborhood, or going to the boardroom and speaking to millionaires, about business matters. I pride myself on being able to be a chameleon. And I think most people that grow up in the neighborhood, you already have that kind of mentality because you have to be a certain way in the streets, you have to be a certain way around your people, and so forth and so on. So as far as on the spiritual path, yes, from my perspective, you do have to switch up your mask. But going back to what I was saying before, you have to put your divinity and your spirituality first. So with that, as long as you know that you are a divine being, an infinite spiritual being, having a human experience, then there's nothing wrong with getting what the flesh desires. Be it foods, be it certain material things, just various events, music, whatever have you. But as long as that is predicated on knowing that there is a bigger purpose being served, that you are a spirit first, and that is paramount over everything else, then there's nothing wrong with switching up your mask and doing different things. Because in one situation, like say you're around someone that you feel is maybe more evolved than you are, then at that moment, you're going to put on your student hat or student mask. But then you may get around someone else that you may be, quote unquote, more evolved in. Then you're going to put on your teacher hat, and you may kick more little information. You may speak more. So when you get around someone who's vibrating high, you may want to, tone it down a little bit and take in their vibration. So that goes with switching up your mask, and we can go on and on about the various examples, but yeah, I do believe it's important to switch up your mask.
Okay, beautiful. One of the things that you mentioned before was, when we're coming with a certain vibration or a certain energy, as an instructor, you have to read if you're coming from upstairs or you're coming from downstairs. With that, let's speak on third eye activation, which is the name of your website. And I want to ask you firstly, what is the third eye?
Third eye, and it can be called first sight. It's associated with the Ajna chakra or the brow chakra. You call it the seat of the soul. It has various names in various cultures. I know you know the Yoruba name for it in the Orisha tradition. It has various names in various cultures. That's how you know it's something to it. When there's a lot of smoke, there's fire. It's associated with the pineal gland, which is endocrine gland or whatever in the middle of your brain. And this is something else we can go on and on about. I want to condense it down. But the best way that I explain it is your two physical eyes help you see this physical reality. Your third eye helps you see the spiritual reality. I use the third eye in conjunction with the subconscious mind, and when I put it together, it's becoming more aware of what you were previously unaware of. The third eye activation, and this is one of the misnomers that I feel in a lot of comments on the YouTube, going back to what you were saying about people posting things, comments, and don't have to basically man up. People say things they wouldn't say in your face, but they'll say it online in a comment box. Let's just put it like that. And one of the things people say is, I want to activate my third eye. I want my third eye activated like immediately. For one thing, activation means to begin. Therefore, you're beginning to work with the energy of your third eye. There are various levels of third eye energy. Activation is one thing. To be honest, it's activated when you come into flesh. It's activated when you come into flesh. But there's different levels of perception and depth that comes with it. So activation is kind of a misnomer. It's just a catchphrase that most people are familiar with, but it's sort of a misnomer. But there's various levels, but in a simplistic terms, third eye helps you with your spiritual vision, so to speak. And it's not just dealing with vision, it's also your receptor. It's a transmitter and a receptor. It's the way you put vibrations out, and it's the way you take vibrations in. And the more heightened you work with that energy, the more higher information that comes channeled through you. You know, that's going to the whole Akashic, and that's one of my main areas of study, and one of my main areas of teaching is dealing with consciousness. And I have what's called the ether space model. I did a show about it, but I deleted the show after so long because, to be honest, the information is something that should be taught in a different venue than a radio. It needs visuals with it. But the ether space is akin to the Akashic records. And that's another misnomer as far as people not connected with the Akashic records. Once again, if you have a body, then you're connected with the Akashic records. And if you're not familiar with the Akashic records, you can call it the mind of God. You can call it the super consciousness. You can call it the supercomputer. You can call it the element or the primordial element that permeates all physical reality. You know, so many different terms, once again, depend on what culture you look at. So the third eye and the ether space work in tandem. The more vibrations, or the higher you raise your vibration, the greater, the higher resonating information that you will be able to perceive by way of the third eye.
Okay, beautiful. So now let me ask you this. What can you give us maybe one technique that is accessible for the average person to cultivate that third eye energy?
Okay, once again, there's many different techniques, there's many different ways, there's never just one path to enlightenment or to any end result, never just one way. But one of the simple techniques I feel comfortable with telling the general audience is deep breaths. Deep breaths. And the science on that is when you're in the sleep state and you're dreaming and getting into the REM state and them high alpha and them theta waves, your breath slow down and get deeper. The breath is associated with your brain patterns. Another example is when you're upset, you start to breathe fast. You know, when you're engaging in lovemaking, you start to breathe fast. It's more of an excitement. It's more of that excitement energy. What the opposite of that is breathing slow, and in turn, that corresponds with particular brain waves. So when you get into the alpha brain waves, that starts to resonate more with the third eye because it's starting to pulsate at a rate that is conducive with channeling information. Same way when you get into the dream state, you're channeling information, but yet you're out of your body, so you're sending information out and you're receiving information, and that's predicated on you slowing down your brain and getting into them deeper realms of your psyche, of your mind. So deep breaths is very important during meditation or even just sitting in your chair or driving. Just take deep breaths. You know, another thing you could do is start doing something kind of repetitive. Get into some sort of ritual where you're doing maybe the same thing. That's the science behind mantras. That's the science behind different yoga postures. Anything that you start to do when you start to kind of channel your body from doing things externally, from doing things internally, it starts to slow down your brain waves once again, but it's also getting into the subconscious mind. Whenever you start to repeat something, it automatically starts to trigger your subconscious mind. An example is driving on a highway. if you're driving on a highway for any extended period, you start to dip down into them brain waves to the point where you don't remember the last time you passed, because your conscious mind is focused on something else. It could be a daydream, it could be a thought you're pondering, and your subconscious mind has now taken over the wheel. Therefore, you're not very aware of your surroundings, but yet you've driven enough to the point where you're not going to drive off the road, but your mind is quote unquote somewhere else. That's why we use terms like that. So you can, like, housewives or ladies or even men, when they're cleaning their house or washing dishes, doing something repetitive gets you into the different brain waves or whatever. So that's two things you can do, deep breaths or doing something kind of repetitive.
Okay, beautiful. Now, I want to ask you, also, is there a difference in how a female goes through their spiritual development as opposed to how a male goes through their spiritual development? Does gender have any bearing on how we process the spiritual world?
Once again, gender, from our perspective, we're talking about physical womb, man, and man. That right there should tell you that they're one and the same. The word man in its original form just denoted person. It did not denote gender or sex specific. That's why we say mankind or humanity. We're not just talking about males, we're talking about male and female. So another misnomer of this physical matrix is the separation between genders. Once again, we contain estrogen and we have testosterone. We contain yin and we contain yang. We have a left arm, we have a right arm. All of them elements are within you. But the problem I see with the women and the men is women are more trained from an early age to be more emotional or to express their feelings more, while men are trained to keep that in, man. A man ain't supposed to cry. You know what I mean? Stop complaining. That's what women do, you know? We're trained at an early age to do that. So the way we're brought up has us look at ourselves differently. But now you have the problem where that's been suppressed for so long, where you have, you know, to be honest, like homosexuality is real rampant now, and, you know, people being kind of confused about what gender they are. Well, that's based on the program that we've installed to the ether space. Now the output is a lot of confused humans for the most part. So one of the things I think is easier for females to be more in touch with their emotions, because we label them as quote unquote an emotional creature. So they have a little bit easier time with developing, like, let's say, their psychic ability. That's why we say women's intuition or women's intuition. But the fact of the matter is, there are men that are very highly in tune also. But it's more accepted for a female to be in touch with that part of their being. But I feel that that's part of the adulteration, keyword adulterated. Once again, that's another word showing you that we're adulterated to a certain point, especially at an early age, where boys are made to play with this and girls are made to play with that. So they're able to express their emotions. And anybody that's familiar with psychology of the mind, and definitely like parapsychology, intuition, and things of that nature, it deals with the emotions. It deals with subtle energies. It deals with being perceptive, receptive. Those are very important yin qualities, feminine, receptive qualities. But if a man is programmed at an early age to be extroverted, to be aggressive, to not be in tune with their feelings, then they're not going to be able to pick up the high vibratory information that the universe is feeding both men and women.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. So in closing, I'd like to ask you, is there anything in particular that you want our audience to know in terms of things that you have going on and services that they can partake in and experiences that they can come and join you in? Okay,
well, currently, and thank you for asking that, everything is an evolving door. I see everything. That's why I'm very cognizant, maybe too picky to an extent, of the words I use and the labels I use. That's why I love the label metaphysics, because it just means that which is beyond the physical. Under that umbrella is many things. So I said that to say what I'm currently doing may be different than what I'm doing 5 years from now, and I have no problem with not being so much married to one ideology or one thing. But with that said, I'm currently, I host a radio show every Sunday called Mind Right Radio. And I also have a website that's called thirdeyeactivation.com. And it's also alimyers.net. Same website, just a different name, one shorter and one longer. On that website, you'll find various articles dealing with the subconscious mind and dealing with the third eye or the pineal gland. I also do one-on-one consultations, and that information can be found on there. Right now, what I'm currently working on as far as my gift to humanity, so to speak, is I'm in the early stages of writing my first book. It's been put on my path for a while now, and it's one of the things I've been hard-headed about is writing a book because it's one of the things that some things that come very natural to us is some of the things that we want to resist sometimes. And that's one of my lessons. I have no problems showing my vulnerability and showing some of my weaknesses. And I think that's another important thing that most people need to do, especially teachers, is show your vulnerabilities and show your students and followers that you're, quote unquote, part human also. So one of the things that I'm working on, I'm putting more of an effort into it now because, like most people who come into this knowledge and come into this experience, we have many books in us. We have many lectures in us. Like you look at the Nation of Islam, the 5%ers, you never met a dumb one. They have all the information and knowledge. But the problem most people have is putting that information to use. That's something I've been very successful with as far as putting the information to my everyday life and seeing my spirituality, benefit me in this physical realm. But one of the things that have been a roadblock is producing a book per se. But if you add up all the articles, I've probably written 3 or 4 books by this time on my 3rd or 4th website. So, but that's one of the things I'm working on. That's going to be done shortly. And also, I'm eventually going to do the online classes. But right now, Spirit put it in my path not to do that, to kind of put that on the back burner. But with that, I'm going to substitute that with doing some free classes at my home here shortly. So if anyone lives in the Middletown, Ohio area, which is between Cincinnati and Dayton, you're more than welcome to come to the crib, break bread and, I give some lessons, but I want to make it more of I give a lesson, then we open the floor for anybody to share. It don't have to be questions to me. We could just, politic about whatever, just make it high vibratory, make the energy real conducive for channeling higher information. My main thing that I want to leave the family with is, just realize that you are greater than what we've been taught. There's no such thing as an Illuminati, no secret societies coming to get you. Nobody out there is against you. If you feel that way, then you have a victim mentality. As gods, as creators, we need to step into our divinity and show the spiritual world that we are a force, and show the, let's just put it like this, show the beings that observe this reality, let them know that we are worthy and that we are elevating, because you have an opportunity now that is very important to exercise your divinity. You hear all the talk about the Aquarian age and the Golden Age. Well, like Erykah Badu, the mothership can't save everybody's butt. You have to do the work. So that's what I want to leave the family with. Don't talk about it, be about it.
Powerful. It's very beautiful, brother. I appreciate that so much, man. Yeah, this was good. This is really good. So